This keynote is called Ubiquitous Frontiers, from the Internet of Things to the Internet of Everything. We live in a world that's created by technology, by industrial revolutions, and by the way that we've progressed ourselves in society. Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Does that undermine our security and privacy, or does it enhance it? And we're going to explore a few of these things as we go through. So how did I start being a futurist? Well, at the age of 8 years old, my father bought me this book, The Usborne Book of the Future. And it looked 250, 75 years into the future and really imagined what life could be like with colonies on the moon, under the oceans, even things like the Hyperloop. And this is the 1970s. So lots of big thinking, lots of science fiction writers, lots of engineers are really fed into that. And that really inspired me to go on through university and really challenge how I thought about the world. I studied artificial intelligence, and it's at that point that I started wondering, what if the world changes? And the way that I actually look at the world and I help clients is to say, hey, stop looking at what is in front of you, what you have to deal with today in 3 months and even in 18 months, and start questioning with creativity and an open mind. What if the world changes? And what if our position in that world is unsustainable? How can we push ourselves forward? How can we think of those miraculous and incredible futures? And I actually like to start around with industrial revolutions. Now, there's 3 dimensions to change in industrial revolutions. And back in 1760, the 3 dimensions of communications, energy, and transportation started to converge. And there's lots of innovations at that point in time, from the printing press to the steam locomotive to coal as well. I'm British and I'm Canadian, so I'm very well attuned to see the history around me when I was growing up in the southwest of England and how some of these innovations really drove us forward. But how have we got to today? Well, I actually think the last 120 years have been fairly exciting. Obviously, electricity really became mainstream and everyone's connected. We can't even imagine a world without electricity. And also, we can't imagine a world without the internal combustion engine vehicle. This is a picture from New York City in 1914. And only in 1900 were there horse-drawn carriages and almost no vehicles on the road. So mass production, the availability of oil, Henry Ford and his motor company really sort of changed that world and drove us forward, quite literally, into the future. 1968 was quite a poignant and important year as well. If you don't know who this is Douglas Engelbart. Douglas Engelbart in 1968 in December gave a demonstration called the Mother of All Demos. And that demonstration showed us so much, everything from hypertext, video conferencing, collaborative working, that would start to prime our thinking about what personal computing and even mobile computing could be. A lot of people at the time didn't believe that that was possible to have computers in every home. And now more than 6 billion people in the world have got mobile phones in their pockets, and it's ubiquitous. And then 1969, we've got putting a man on the moon, and it's very exciting in the next few years with NASA's Artemis project, potentially putting a woman on the moon and actually building a colony there as well. And these moments really thrust us forward into a whole new world. And it was in 1989, 1990 that we saw a world really appear that started to change everything. And that was an interconnected world with something that was new and exciting and came out of military usage into public domain, and that was the internet. What's quite interesting to understand is the internet literally is wires under the sea, wires across the ground. Even mobile telephony drives its traffic down into those wires of the internet so we can get the fast enough speeds that we're used to. We can't really imagine a life without the internet, and we very much find ourselves in 4IR, or the fourth industrial revolution, where we've got renewable energy, we've got almost instantaneous internetized communications, social media, and all of that. And we've also got everything from suborbital space travel all the way through to electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles as well. What's fascinating about this fourth industrial revolution is that there are trillions of dollars being invested in this future, and how
now they're sending the same sort.
Excuse me. But I like to think about the world in slightly different ways. I think that we're at a position now to add a fourth dimension to communications, energy, and transportation. I think that's of biology. If you've ever done a 23andMe profile, if you've ever been to the hospital and given them a sample of anything, you're in a database, Ancestry.com, all of these things try and test our biological lineages and try and tell stories about who we are. And this infinite humanity that I talk about is going to be an important theme as we go through this presentation. But what about the Internet of Things, our new connected reality? Well, what is IoT as it's known? It's the interconnection via the Internet of computing devices embedded in everyday objects. We're surrounded by everything from the cameras in front of us, the lights around us, even the roads that we drive on. So the things are surrounding us, and there are going to be trillions of sensors in the world. It started with humble beginnings in 1992. Researchers in Carnegie Mellon University at the beginnings of the internet thought, hey, why don't we connect the Coca-Cola machine so we can see when it's running out of its inventory, and we can stay up to date, and it can send us signals wherever we are in the world. And that experiment was really ground zero for thinking about the Internet of Things. But today, we've got three interconnected pieces to consider. There's us, there's the people, there's the data we create, and there are the things that are the conduit for those two things, with people to machine, people to people, and also machine to machine relationships and connections. And underneath that, we're going to talk about these as well, is the networks, devices, and platforms that we're surrounded by, that we subscribe to. And oftentimes, 20 plus platforms in each of our lives change and control how we operate. We need to be really aware of the privacy and security concerns there, and we need to have a new sense of who we are in the world and what we are as part of that system. Now, the Internet of Things is on track to explode. 1 trillion sensors by 2025, they're saying. We're already at a point with 50 billion connected things. And each of those things have got connected sensors within them. Each smartphone has got upwards of 20 to 25 different sensors. Vehicles have got sensors, and we're going to talk a lot about these different things. But from our homes to the cities, to industry, to energy, transportation, into hospitals and schools, we can expect the Internet of Things to have a profound effect on how we operate, but how we operationalize our world. Okay, let's look at devices and platforms, the multiplicity of connecting points. Now, if we look at the screens that we have in our pockets, you might even have them next to you on your desk as you watch this presentation. Well, we're kind of addicted to online time. Canadians spend over 11 hours per day online. 29% of people never take a break from online activity. And in 2020, 31.38 million smartphone users in Canada. That's almost complete coverage of everyone. I mean, we've got some of the highest data costs in the world here, but we just can't leave those phones alone, which is a bit of a shame, because a recent study down at the University of Texas at Austin actually found that your cognitive capacity is significantly reduced when you're in the presence of your smartphone, not when you're using it. Even when it's turned off on the desk next to you, it's vying for your attention. So think about that right now. You're probably wondering what's happening in that second world within your social networks, within your email. Some of you are probably even scrolling through your phone right now. You might want to put that down and engage in this presentation. And then think about this in terms of family. And maybe in the evenings, everyone puts their phone away in a room away from harm's way, and our conversations and our family time. That's not always that easy. In fact, we might even put everything away and then still have smart devices around. About 28% of people in Canada actually own smart home devices like Amazon's Alexa and the such like. And by 2025, we're going to have a household penetration of at least one smart device in homes of 46.9%. So whilst we are addicted to our screens, we're going to have these ambient technologies, these things in the background that are going to be always listening. And what's quite interesting when we surround ourselves with technology is we try and humanize them. I mean, we tend to think that our phone is listening to us. 37% of Canadians think that. A third of Canadians have actually sworn at their voice-activated assistant. Maybe you have. And 7 in 10 Canadians have also said please and thank you. We're kind of creating a personality. This is why people like Amazon are giving their devices names and lovely voices to listen to. And Amazon's gone one step further in India, and they've hired this guy, Amitabh Bachchan, and he's a huge actor. He's like Marlon Brando meets Al Pacino meets Robert De Niro. He's like the king of Bollywood, and he's going to be the new voice of Amazon's Alexa. Imagine that, you know, going after the market share in India and trying to get the ears of 1.3 billion people. You know, this is big business, and we have to have a human connection. Okay, let's go beyond devices, and there's some interesting statistics that we just spoke about. And I talk about networks forever. We're always going to be connected from this point forward. It's very difficult to step off of those networks. The first new technologies that are coming in over the next few years are going to be 5G. By 2025, they're saying 1.1 billion connections in the world. And what's going to be good about that? That means higher bandwidth. That means new applications. There's no real killer application today. But when we start to think about autonomous vehicles, smart cities, virtual reality, even augmented reality that we're going to talk about a little bit later, we're going to see the need to have high definition movies streaming faster and data for operational purposes being secure and having no latency at all. Another technology I'm super excited about is suborbital linkages to the internet. There's a lot of areas around the world that cannot get internet connections, remote communities in northern Canada, communities across Africa, and the plains of Siberia. Now, Elon Musk has been putting lots of Starlink satellites up into the atmosphere. These are low Earth orbit satellites. Today, there's about 2,500. By 2024, 4,400. By 2027, 12,000. And they say that that's going to give us latency of less than 20 milliseconds. So that's pretty good internet capability even for streaming. Elon Musk says that it's not going to change how cities and businesses work. We're not going to be connecting to that straight away. But for remote applications, it's going to be an absolute game changer. And this is the goal, to connect everyone on the planet. Because right now we're just at a tad over 4 billion people connected with over 3 billion to go. And one other technology I like to follow as well in my work as a futurist is mesh technology. It's the idea that you don't need these networks, you don't need Wi-Fi, and that devices can connect to devices. And this $8 billion market by 2026 is going to be used for resiliency in fire services, other emergency services. If there's any sort of dangerous events, maybe we're going to have this built into our communications devices as well. And suddenly, even if networks are knocked out, we can connect to each other using mesh networks. Very exciting area. Okay, we've talked about sensors and we've talked about networks and devices. Let's get into sensor fusion. This is when everything comes together and everything changes. When we bring technologies together, we can suddenly find new applications. For example, autonomous vehicles. The big promise of autonomous vehicles is to remove the human from the machine so that we don't do such a bad job of driving. If we can affect that 1.3 million people that die every year from bad driving, then that's going to be fairly significant in terms of human life and saving that. But if we think about cars, autonomous and otherwise, the cars that you drive around to the grocery stores to see your families right now, and even when you drive them back to work, you're going to have 25 to 50 CPUs or mini computers within your car. And that means that there's a security vulnerability there. And a lot of people have been testing this out. Now, I'm going to play you a clip now from Wired magazine from a couple of years ago. A couple of years before that, they'd put a couple of hackers in the back seat that wired themselves up to the car and controlled it. And now this clip shows a couple of hackers that are wirelessly connected to this vehicle and getting this guy into a lot of bother.
Now they're sending the same sort of attacks remotely, and I have no idea what they might do.
He's going as fast as I've seen him. So
first we're going to turn the fan on him.
Yeah, let's turn the fan on, see if he even notices.
All right, something just turned on, all the fans and AC and stuff. I didn't do that. The trick started small. Oh my God. There's a picture of Charlie and Chris in tracksuits that just appeared on the dashboard. But as I drove down the interstate, things started getting unpleasant and very loud. Perfect. I can't turn it down.
This was such a fun video. Ski walking
Cool.
out to Jordan.
And now the air conditioning is blasting, the music is blasting, and I can't see anything because of the f***ing windshield wiper fluid.
Okay, do it. Do it. Kill the engine.
So we're killing the engine right now.
It says park sense. Actually can't accelerate. I stomped on the gas, but the Jeep slowed to a crawl. It says 43 miles an hour, but I'm not going that fast. I turned on my hazard lights, but I was still stuck in the right lane with no shoulder to escape onto. Guys, I'm stuck on the highway.
What do you say?
I don't know, I think he's panicking. He's not gonna be able to hear us with that radio. It's so loud.
Guys, I need the accelerator to work again.
The accelerator will work.
It won't work!
You're doomed.
Okay, and doomed he was. If you watch the whole video, they get into a whole bunch of different trouble with him, and this just shows the fragility of our systems that are in place. If we don't have those security measures around us, and this is ultimately controlled by the car companies and the networks that they use, we can get ourselves in trouble. That was just one vehicle. Imagine if it was dozens, hundreds, even thousands of vehicles during rush hour, and people could control them and make them go faster. And yeah, we're going to find ourselves in a pretty terrifying place. So the Internet of Cars and the Internet of Vehicles is going to be super interesting. Another really interesting area is around the high street. So a few years ago, Amazon bought Whole Foods for $14 billion. On the same day, Amazon's market value went up by $14 billion. So it seemed like quite a neutral purchase to them. But what they did over time was rethink the grocery experience. And they're going to try and integrate this kind of technology that they've got in Amazon Go, which they're calling just walk out technology, where you can go in, get what you need, take it, and then leave. Let's take a look at how that works.
4 years ago, we started to wonder, what would shopping look like if you could walk into a store, grab what you want, and just go? What if we could weave the most advanced machine learning, computer vision, and AI into the very fabric of a store so you never have to wait in line? No lines, no checkouts, no registers. Welcome to Amazon Go. Use the Amazon Go app to enter. Then put away your phone and start shopping. It's really that simple. Take whatever you like. Anything you pick up is automatically added to your virtual cart. If you change your mind about that cupcake, just put it back. Our technology will update your virtual cart automatically. So, how does it work? We used computer vision, deep learning algorithms, and sensor fusion, much like you'd find in self-driving cars. We call it Just Walk Out technology. Once you've got everything you want, you can just go. When you leave, our Just Walk Out technology adds up your virtual cart and charges your Amazon account. Your receipt is sent straight to the app, and you can keep going. Amazon Go. No lines, no checkout. No, seriously.
Now, when I lived on the West Coast, I got a chance to go to this down in Seattle. It was a fascinating experience. Now they're starting to be rolled out across America. We're going to see them up in Canada soon. We've got Walmart and and Microsoft and other companies looking at technologies like this. The friction-free experience is something that I can only dream of in a supermarket. My partner, she likes to walk around and take her time, but this technology would work for her and for me. During this, you'd be able to tell our emotions during the experience, and you'll be able to match that to the online purchasing and browsing that we do as well. And this is an image taken from the patent that Amazon put out there for Amazon Go. And here we've got their cloud services, we've got the inventory management system, we've got Wi-Fi, we got cameras and sensors in the roof of the supermarket watching our every move. We've got pressure sensors on the shelves as well, and it's got us. We are the product in this. We really just going to be scanning the app. The terms and conditions are going to say that they're going to be able to harvest our data from those interactions, and that freedom of movement, that just walk out technology is going to mean that Amazon's going to get more powerful over time. So this is a different kind of Internet of Things that we need to be aware of. And this is why I called the presentation Ubiquitous Frontiers, because we're going to be surrounded. Okay, let's talk about security. Let's talk about privacy. Now, when we've got more access to our information from the home, that means more people have potentially got more access to our information as well, either directly through us or through those devices or through the companies at the back end. We can be victims of identity and data theft, social engineering, where con artists try and get passwords and information out of us, botnets, denial of service, ransomware, more technological attacks. And these are becoming commonplace. 3/4 of Canadians say they're concerned about malware when using the internet. And what's really fascinating to me is 27% of Canadians say that they've been a victim of a successful cyber attack. Well, if you're looking at that, you're also looking at other stats like $3 to $4 billion a year is spent by Canadian business to make sure that we're safe. But what we have to do is come back to ourselves and think about the level of exposure we have and how we can control that. We're in a world that a good friend of mine, Patrick Neal, who's a professor of cyber warfare out in Vancouver, talks about as the war on one. We are the weakest points in every single network. You might have noticed spam and phishing messages. You might have noticed any sort of attacks on personal websites and social media accounts. You'd be absolutely terrified at the amount of attacks that happen on accessing your bank account on any single day. Wonder why banks don't tell us those statistics, and you'll really know that there's a huge amount of exposure. This war on one creates networks of people that create vulnerabilities. And the one thing I implore you to do is go and review all of your passwords. I'm assuming all your devices use completely different passwords. Some of you are probably thinking, well, not really. Okay, if you say use just one password or two or three, how strong are they? And this grid kind of tells us that if we get to a point where we've got a 12-character password that uses upper and lowercase letters and symbols, you're doing well. It's going to be very, very difficult for hackers using the technology available to them. And the machine learning, it's very easy to come by. They're going to break into your systems if they really, really want to. How many of you are actually using 12+ character passwords? You can use one password to store a whole bunch of different things, use a difficult password to store them. There are lots of different solutions out there. After this meeting, I implore you to go and have lots of conversations with everyone in your household about the importance of this. And we'll make sure that you get this post-keynote report and this particular graph so that you can persuade people that it's a really good idea to secure your future. Now, staying secure is pretty easy. Reduce that exposure. Do you need all those devices? Do they always need to be on? What information are you sharing with them? Especially in social networks. Use complex passwords, like I just said, and increase your own awareness and monitor the behavior. If you see something that's strange, think about changing your password, not across one device, but across all the devices and all the networks as well. Because if someone has compromised you, they're likely compromised you across multiple dimensions.